Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 376 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our third book is out. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Leveraging Your Fraternity or Sorority Experience to Land Your Dream Job. So go and pick up that book today on Amazon. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I recently took a tour of Harvard University over the summer with my kids who are looking at various colleges, and Harvard currently does not recognize any fraternities or sororities. However, it's clear that the specific dorm that the students live in have a very competitive source of pride for each student, and they all believe that their dorm is the best dorm based on the different features that is in it. For example, a particular gym in one of the dorms or superior food quality in another dorm that's not available anywhere else on campus. So I want to dig a little bit more into these dynamics. I think this is very interesting and very unique to Harvard. Dr. Dominique Padurano, also known as Dr. P, holds 4 permanent teaching certifications from New York State, a master's degree in education, as well as a Ph.D. in history from Rutgers and a bachelor's degree in art history from Harvard, where she graduated with high honors. Since opening Crimson Coaching in 2014, she has been blessed with scores of students hailing from 14 states and 11 countries. Crimson Coaching students have been awarded hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of scholarships. They've been accepted to some of the nation's top universities and colleges, including Harvard, Princeton, Smith, BU, and BC. And they've improved their grades and their skills in a variety of subjects, and they are able to build their confidence and achieve their dreams. Welcome to the show, Dr. P.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's an honor to have you on the show. You have so much great information to share with our college students today. So I just can't wait to dive in. And of course, we're going to start with Harvard University. I mean, where else can we start? This is where you had your undergraduate experience, very high on the list for my daughter in particular. We just toured the campus. Now, I am sure if you're anything like my daughter, which I'm sure you guys are like identical twins, you had many options for college, okay, just based on your grades and your standardized tests and all of that. So why did you choose Harvard? And are you loyal to either Dunster or Lowell?
You dug that one out somewhere in my bio somewhere. But so believe it or not, in the beginning of high school, I wanted to join the Peace Corps and go to art school. And it was only till about the end of my junior year when I realized, oh, I got some pretty good SAT scores. I'm valedictorian of a big school. Maybe I could go to an Ivy League school. And, my dad was a New York City police officer. So it's not like I, came from a college where people went, a home where lots of people went to college, and we toured Harvard as well as some others. I applied and I got in. But I also got into Stanford, and because I was 17 and clueless, I thought I'd be going to school on the beach in California. And my parents didn't know either, and my dad didn't want me to go there. And he told me, if you want to go to Stanford, just think you're getting one plane ticket there and one plane ticket back. Don't think you're coming home for holidays. So my dad had the power of the purse. And really, it was my dad who I think kind of made me choose Harvard. Not that I am regretting it at all, but definitely he had a big role in that, I think. And in terms of Dunster or Lowell, I have a lot of great friends still to this day from Lowell House, but at the time, Harvard houses were not randomly assigned to students. They all had a character. For example, Adams House was super artsy. Kirkland House was super athletic. Dunster House was a place where I already had a lot of friends, and they were sort of very progressive. And so my heart lies with Dunster because I spent 2 years there, not just 1 year, like in Lowell.
I got it. All right. Well, all the residents of Lowell just collectively had a sigh as soon as they heard that. I'm just letting you know what's happening in the audience right now.
Okay.
All right. So when you graduated, I love this. You really did not know what on earth you were going to do. I mean, you tried law, you tried banking, you tried photojournalism, and then all of a sudden you fall in love with teaching. So what is your advice to all of these new graduates in terms of finding the right career for them? Because I got to tell you, they don't know what to do.
I know. And I can remember that feeling of being 22 and feeling like the world was my oyster, but I had no idea. And I thought if I made 2 steps in one direction and it was wrong, it would be the end of the world. And what I can tell you from my own experience is it's not the end of the world. You try something, and if it doesn't work out, you still are so young, you have time to pivot. The best advice I ever got was from a professor at Rutgers, where I got my Ph.D., who, I was sort of like, do I stop earning a living because I had already been teaching to go back to school? And she said, Dominique, the only thing in life that's irrevocable is having a kid. And I thought that was really great advice. And I've followed that in my own life since then, that nothing is, written in stone. You can always try new things. But in terms of like concrete advice, I do advise students while they're in college to find a mentor. And that could either be a student who's a couple of years older than you, or a professor in the field that you're interested in. They can help guide you in a way that a different person not in that field, can't do. And then if you can, take an internship. I was always in the kind of financial position where I needed to make money for college during summers, so I couldn't take an unpaid internship. But I do think that they're wonderful. And I see some of my former students who've come back. One student I coached for the SAT, I'm now working with her on her GRE prep for grad school. And she's doing an unpaid internship and she's learning so much. It's so great. So I advise students to do that if they can.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, this is the big reason why I'm such a fan of the fraternity and sorority system, because I do think that you will get your mentor. There's always going to be a junior or a senior that is a couple of years ahead of you in your major that can help advise you on which classes to take and also which professors that you need to be taking it with. And that certainly was the case for me as a freshman accounting student. There was, a junior accounting major, and he told me everything that I needed to know. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is just incredible. So that was really, really helpful. And the same thing with the internships. I feel like all those connections, I mean, now you have fraternity brothers or sorority sisters with, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 members. And that is a huge network to be able to put your services out to and then say, hey, do you have an internship available? And I know that if a fraternity brother of mine calls and he's an undergrad at wherever, you better believe that I'm going to take the call and I'm going to help them any way that I can. I mean, that's what we do.
Absolutely. My brother went to Lehigh. We're very close in age, and Lehigh has fraternities, and he was in one. And I see how close. I mean, one of his fraternity brothers was actually his, best man at his wedding. My brother got his first job after college from a guy who was about 10 years older. So it's a wonderful network. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with your brother completely. I think there's a lot there that could be really helpful if your university has it, of course. So that's not always an option. But, I wanted to talk a little bit more about Crimson Coaching because you opened Crimson Coaching in 2014. You've now worked with students from 14 states, 11 countries. Tell us a little bit more about Crimson Coaching and what's the best part of your job?
So Crimson Coaching, I provide, because really Dr. P is Crimson Coaching. Very seldom do I hire an outside tutor. It's for, say, calculus or chemistry, which I don't tutor in. But I provide academic tutoring for school, test prep for things like the SAT, ACT, GRE, and then college essay coaching and college counseling, sort of building a college list for a student. And those last two buckets are sort of about 80% of Crimson Coaching's business. The best thing, I think the number one thing, is that I get to work one-on-one with students, which I absolutely adore. But out of all of the various things that I do love college essay coaching the most, because every kid has a different story. So every essay is completely unique, and it requires somebody who's both, I think, a good writer and editor, and somebody who's really sensitive to students and able to kind of question and draw out examples to get them to write the strongest personal statement that will get them into either undergrad or I've worked with students in college for graduate school as well.
Well, my daughter is going to be very excited to work with you, because you better believe that she's going to have that application to Harvard. She needs you to look it over before she sends it in. All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So, time management is also something that all the students will struggle with at some point. I know I certainly did. But I do feel like being involved as a student in a student organization, as the president of the fraternity, you'll learn time management skills one way or the other. I guarantee it. So what is your advice to college students listening now in terms of balancing school, balancing work, balancing their relationships with friends, with family, and all of the extracurricular activities that the students are involved with today?
So I think the first thing that students really need to do is sort of look inward, right? And say, what are my priorities? And let me set some goals. If you go to my website, which is crimsoncoaching.com, there's a free ebook on goal setting that students can download. It's almost like a workbook, and it takes you through step by step with exercises. But I think it's really important that students take a look at what their goals are, and then where they're spending their time. And for younger students, they don't always realize, hey, if I'm spending 5 hours a day on Fortnite, playing Fortnite or some other video game, but I really want to get an A in algebra, those two things may not be aligned. So by setting, first realistic goals, right? If you're currently getting a 50 in algebra, an A might not be realistic for you, but setting small incremental goals can, I think, really help students to figure out where they want to go. And then I know digital, I use a digital calendar, right? On my phone, it's hooked up to my laptop. But if you're struggling with time management, I think actually having a planner where you're writing stuff down is really important, and being able to see the whole month at a glance, because sometimes students, if they're using a weekly planner and something is due at the end of the month, they're going to forget until they get to that week that, oh my God, I have a 15-page paper due this week. So a monthly calendar will keep everything kind of in one view at the time. So that's kind of what I recommend for students who struggle with time management.
Yeah, I fall into bucket number two. I keep a manual planner where I'm actually writing everything down. I can look at the entire month at a glance. And I think just the pen to paper really helps me so much, as opposed to digital, which, listen, I got a smartphone, I got all the toys too. But I just think there's something about pen to paper that makes me retain the information that I'm writing. I don't know what it is. I'm just telling you that this is the way that my brain works.
Believe it or not, there are cognitive scientists who have studied this,
Yeah.
and your experience is the human race, right?
Yeah.
Everybody remembers stuff that they write down more than what we type. Yeah.
100%. So for me, it really helps. And I've been doing that ever since I was a college student. And so, this has been now, 25 years later, I'm still doing it. So understand that it works. If you need to get organized, getting that planner, getting that monthly view, just like Dr. P is saying, and just write it down if you can, I'm telling you, it will fix a lot of problems that you're dealing with. Now, what are some studying tips that you can give our college listeners to help them achieve a better GPA? Because I know you had a killer GPA if you got into Harvard. So what studying techniques, tips can you give us?
Well, as we were kind of discussing, but prior to recording, I also am an adjunct professor of history for City University of New York. And a lot of times I have students who come to me and they say, oh, I'm not good at history, or, I was really bad at history. What should I do? The first thing I always recommend is the first kind of tip for studying is reading. For anything, I mean, this is not for math necessarily, but for most subjects, you do have to read. I say read something through the first time once without taking notes, then the second time take notes, because it's almost like if a friend asks you to talk to them about your favorite movie, it's going to be really hard to tell them your best parts of your favorite movie while you're watching that movie. You can only do that after you've watched the whole movie at least once, right? So you'll now know what's important on the second time. And since so many students do attend school partially digitally now, I'm still teaching online for CUNY, for example. If your professor posts a podcast or a video, do the same thing with those. Listen once without taking notes, then the second time take notes. It's really, and just like you were saying before, take notes by hand, because that's going to help you retain that information much more strongly than if you are typing.
Yeah, that's great advice. Really, really good stuff. I love it. And let's talk about note taking, because now you're asking us to watch the video, watch the podcast, go back and take notes. So when we're actually taking notes, what is the note taking technique that you're going to recommend to your students? Is it the Cornell note taking system, or is there some other system that you use?
So for my subject, which is history, I wholeheartedly endorse Cornell note taking. In fact, students learn it in the first week of my course
Oh, wow.
because it works so well. But not every subject is going to work really well with that. So I think the best thing that students can do is go to your professor's office hours and ask them, in your discipline, how do you recommend taking notes? For example, maybe in math, the better thing is doing all of the problems that you got wrong in a problem set over again until you can get them right, right? The thing that always surprises me about college students is how few of them show up to office hours. And at least at CUNY, we get paid for our office hour and students don't come. And that is just an hour when you can develop a relationship with a mentor, learn something about that discipline, and get tips on how to maybe get an A or a B in their class.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head. Students are not taking advantage of office hours, and this is a huge missed opportunity. The professor is going to be there regardless if you're there or not there. You might as well, build a relationship with them, because that's going to help you when it comes time to grading, okay? That they actually know who you are, that you stopped in to see them. And then, just like Dr. P is suggesting, they might have some input for you in terms of note taking that's going to help you. It might be the Cornell note system, or it might be some other system. But just listen to what your professor has to say. And I'm telling you, they will give you the guidance you need in order to increase your GPA. And if you do have any questions on the Cornell note system, just go and look that up, Google it, and it'll teach you exactly how to use the Cornell note system. It's something that I use when I take notes in my doctoral program. It'll be really helpful for you too. So I hope that helps. The other thing that concerns me a little bit about today's college students, and you're working with them at CUNY all the time, they are all stressed out. They all suffer from anxiety. Most of them also aren't sleeping properly as well. So that's a whole nother thing. But how can students today reduce their stress at college?
So I actually want to also give them a resource. So I also have a YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/Crimson Coaching. And in my studying and note taking video, you can see someone take you through how to do the Cornell note-taking method. So if you don't know how, you can learn there. And then I also have one called Self-Care and Taming Anxiety. I have many little hats, right? And I'm also a certified yoga teacher. So, you know, I'm a real big believer that, you know, our head is not just like a disconnected thing, right? It's connected to our body. And if we're not taking care of our body, our brain is not going to work well. So the first thing that I think students really need to do when they're managing their time is bubble in 8 hours of sleep a night. Teenagers, especially if you're a little bit on the younger side, you might need more than 8 hours, but at the very least 8 hours of sleep. Try to get up at around the same time every day, which I know is really hard on weekends, but that's only going to make Monday that much more difficult if you slept till noon over the weekends. Exercise is a great stress reliever. If you want to combine exercise with sort of more direct anti-anxiety things, yoga is just wonderful. And through yoga, I actually got into meditation, which has helped me personally even more because, you know, I was a very anxious student, even though I did well at school. I mean, Harvard is a stressful place. Everybody, you know, at high school, sure, I did really well, but at Harvard, everybody was, you know, my equal. And, you know, I wish I had known these things during college. And the last thing I wish I knew is that you can reach out and ask for help. I was never really good at that. And I think that nowadays college campuses have a lot of resources for students. And if you feel like you've done all the sleep, exercise, yoga, meditation, and you're still anxious, it could be you really need some professional help. And there are people there to help you.
100%. There's a counseling center at your campus. So please use those resources. Just like Dr. P, she and I are alike in many ways. I wasn't very good at asking for help. I didn't discover therapy until I was an adult. That was a mistake. You know, don't repeat these mistakes. All of those resources, you're paying for it anyway as part of your tuition. You might as well use all the resources at your disposal. So I think all of that is really, really great. The episode right before you was actually with a college student. He's a president of a fraternity at East Carolina University. And in terms of staying organized and, you know, keeping stress free, he basically signed up for a 9 a.m. class every day of the week. And while at times it might be difficult for him to get up that early, it just really helps him in terms of his structure, his sleep patterns. He knows he needs 8 hours of sleep. So that means that he has to be in bed by midnight every night. Otherwise, there's no way that he's going to be able to wake up for his 9 a.m. class. And it just gives him the structure that he needs. It might be a little bit inconvenient waking up that early, but it gives him the structure and he knows himself. He knows that if he doesn't have a class at 9 a.m., he's going to sleep until noon. He just knows himself.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I guess it works for him. You know, the other thing that I want to ask you, because a lot of our listeners, they're already in college and they're considering grad school right now. So what advice do you have for them on their applications for grad school and or maybe the entrance exams for grad school?
So my first piece of advice is, unfortunately, your application for grad school is being built from the very first day you step on campus as a freshman. And the better grades you can get, the more it's going to help you 3 or 4 years down the line. I'm working with an adult student now whose lifelong dream it's been to get a degree from Harvard. And he had a very low GPA, somewhere in the twos as an undergrad, and it's really hurting him. And so he's having to do much more work in order to try to realize his dream. The other thing is that, you know, the GRE is not actually required for most grad schools now. Of course, the LSAT, MCAT, GMAT usually are, but I would say if any of these tests are required, prepare for them. I had a student who I'm working with now said, well, the GRE is required. Do you think I should study for it? And I was like,
Yes.
yes. You never want to go into one of those tests unprepared. And then the last thing is sort of what we were talking about before. You know, studies have shown that the most successful students, whether you go to community college or whether you go to Harvard, the most successful students in terms of later life have a mentor and got involved in the life of their school, whether it was working on campus or joining clubs, joining fraternity sororities. Those things will also help you in getting to the right grad school and in succeeding there as well.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. All the studies show that, involved students, the college will retain them and they're going to be better off in terms of their outcomes, their life outcomes. So I love all of that advice. I think that's, really, really good, spot on. Full transparency, my grades as an undergrad were not wonderful. I majored in fraternity, like that was my priority. Now, of course, later on, I became the executive director of said national fraternity with 115,000 members. So it
Right.
worked out for me, but
Right.
understand that you can still go to grad school and then you go into a doctoral program like I'm in right now. It's not the end of the world. Getting into Harvard, that's going to be hard if you have a 2-something GPA. No question about it. But I do remember getting the transcripts and sending them over to my master's program. And they looked at it and they had an interview with me and they're like, Mike, we're looking at your transcripts as an undergrad. They're not good. Like, these numbers are not stellar. What makes you think that you're going to be successful here? And I had to justify that. And a lot of it came down to my work record because I, at that point, had been working now for, 15 or 20 years and I had significant achievement in the workplace. And so that certainly stood out. And just for the record, I have a 4.0 in my grad school program and in the doctoral program. All right. So it is possible for all those with the twos, you know, you're probably going to be a little bit more mature as an adult and you're going to take things a little bit more seriously, in my opinion, than maybe as an undergrad. So it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We'll get there.
Absolutely. I will just add, in case my adult student sees this, he's also going for a master's now at his undergraduate alma mater,
Yeah.
which I advised. And I said, if you get a 4.0 there, then maybe Harvard will take you. And he also has a 4.0. So
There
I'm
you
very
go.
confident. Yeah.
See, it is possible. You can get
Yes.
there. You can,
Yes.
fix the prior wrongs. There are reasons why, as a male, I will tell you, I was just not mature at age 18, 19. My brain was not fully developed. And it just took me a little bit longer to get there. That's all. And if you read some of the recent books that are published in terms of like what's going on with young males, one of the arguments is maybe we should have young males basically hold them back essentially 1 year so that way they're actually on par with the females in their classes all the way through elementary, junior high, and high school. I mean, it's not my idea, but I'm just telling you what's out there.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, so some food for thought. Speaking of food, let me tell you, I love Long Island. Okay, this is my favorite place. Lived there in East Meadow for many, many years. I love the pizza, love the bagels. Are you kidding me? So good. The seafood, oh, I would die for the seafood right now. Okay, I'm living in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm landlocked. I don't have any seafood. I miss all of this so much. So the next time I arrive in Suffolk County, where should I go for a great meal these days?
So I love this little place in Patchogue, which is right on the water, called the Oar. And you get great seafood, but more importantly, the ambiance. It's kind of like a party, and it's just lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I
Yeah.
love it. That's a great recommendation. My wife is going to like that a lot too. That's one of the big things that she misses about Long Island is being able to eat on the water, literally on the ocean. There's all kinds of restaurants there that you can sit and just look out at the water. And there's just nothing like it. Like, I mean, it's nothing on the planet that's better than that, especially the great seafood that you have there. Oh,
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss it so much. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
sorry.
All right. So, if our student listeners, if they want to contact you for tutoring, test prep, college applications, study skills, stress reduction, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Well, if they want to contact me directly, email's the best way. My email is info@crimsoncoaching.com. But if they just want to check out some other resources, my YouTube is a great place to do that. I also have a blog on my website, which is crimsoncoaching.com, where I discuss all these types of things, as well as things like the recent Supreme Court decisions about it, dealing with education. And I'm also on Facebook. I regret that I am not yet on TikTok, but you can only one lady can only do so much.
All right, eventually we're going to get you on TikTok. I think that you'll find huge amount of clients and customers on TikTok. It's Gen Z is all over that, and I'm telling you, it's a gold mine. But anyway, we'll talk about that offline. In the meantime, to our listeners, go to crimsoncoaching.com, go to youtube.com/Crimson Coaching, go and take advantage of her blog, Dr. P's blog. There's that free PDF that you can go and get on her website, or just go and email her info@crimsoncoaching.com. Dr. P is the real deal, okay? So please, please, please go and let her know that you heard about her on the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Dr. P, thank you so much for spending your time with us today and blessing us with all of this great information.
Oh, thank you, Michael. It was a great time talking to you. You're a blast.
Hey, you're a lot of fun too. And you're from Long Island. So you're already like tops in my book, okay? To our listeners, if you enjoyed this talk with Dr. P, please make sure that you like it on social media. Please make sure that you share it on social media, so that way more college students, more grad students can get the opportunity to work with Dr. P as well. Thanks so much for being here today, and we will see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.